We're going to talk about RFIs. I have been involved in industry discussions lately, as well as industry panels, and there seems to be a question of what is some of the most challenging aspects of our career or in construction. And a reoccurring response from multiple industry members seems to be communication, effective communication. And RFIs are an amazing communication tool if they are used correctly. So that's what we're going to cover today, is what an RFI is, how to effectively write an RFI, and then also how to effectively answer an RFI, just to help us with this effective communication and this challenge within our industry. So what is an RFI? An RFI, very generally, is a request for information. More specifically, it is a tool to clarify communication or a request for additional information to better understand and align the owner's vision among the entire project team. Essentially, are we understanding this correctly to make sure that we build what you are asking for? It's minor communication within and throughout the project to verify that our vision and how we are building a building is aligning with the client's or the owner's vision of what they are wanting. Why do we have to write this down? Why does it have to be documented? Sounds simple enough, right? Well, I could just go ask him. Well, great, but we're not the only ones working on the project, are we? When it is written, it's easier to translate the exact message to the rest of the project team. We've kind of gone over how many people are actually involved in building a project. And again, it's one response, not one response getting interpreted by somebody and then communicated differently to somebody else. And then that person's interpretation of that communication, we can all see where this is going, right? Of how many people and how many layers once it gets down to the person actually installing the material. No idea. Kind of honestly don't want to see what that would look like. So it is a very direct and simple way to communicate any changes in alignment and vision to the entire project team. It is unrealistic to not expect any RFIs on a project, and I actually do not encourage this because it's simply a formal way of communicating on a project. If at the beginning of the project, as a team, we're shooting for 0 RFIs on a project, there might be questions that go unasked just for the sake of shooting for the 0 RFIs on a project. RFIs aren't a bad thing. Again, it's just formal communication and a very easy way to mass communicate this to the rest of the project team. On the opposite side of the coin, you can have way too many RFIs, and this might expose a lack of time needed for the design phase of the project, as we just didn't have enough time to get all the details into the documents. But it also could be documenting somebody's ego in a very ineffective way, that they know more about a project than anybody else. They're just trying to show themselves up on a project team. I'm not really sure. I don't understand. I have seen this and I don't understand the intent behind it, but so there is a happy medium though. Again, going for 0 RFIs, I personally don't see that as effective, and I don't see the purpose for that. Again, it's an official way to document just changes in alignment through a project. But I do see the opposite end of that in the effect when you have way too many RFIs. That might be exposing something a little deeper within the project. So somewhere in the middle is the happy medium. Okay, somewhere in the middle of that, and again, depending on the length and the simplicity or difficulty of your project, you're going to have more or less RFIs. So how do we write or initiate an RFI? Typically, a question or a clarification surfaces, whether it's from the GC specifically, whether it's from a supplier, whether it's from a subcontractor, a question arises, okay? So first step in that instance is we need to make sure that we can't already answer it, right? That sounds like a very simple step, but I think it's missed sometimes. So can I answer the question? If I cannot, then we probably need to elevate it to the next level. If it's a supplier, the subcontractor. If it's a subcontractor, the GC. If it's the GC, the architect or the owner, right? But additionally, if you receive an RFI from somebody, we need to make sure that we can't answer that. And it does not have to be sent to the next level and answered as a team. If we already have the answer, then answer it. Great, perfect, problem solved. Now, if we have put in an honest effort and we cannot answer it, or there is indeed clarification that is needed, or maybe you're assuming this is what he or she means or isn't intending, then it may just be a simple phone call and an answer that way. But if it's something that you see a lot of people may misunderstand, then that's probably a good candidate for an RFI, because again, it has to be communicated to a large amount of people. Anybody who's going to be onboarded, any other subcontractors later on in the project. So that's when we write the RFI. That's when the question then gets elevated to the next level to be answered officially with the project team. So now we're in the stage of writing the RFI. Now we're going to write the RFI. Requirement for every RFI include page numbers, details, photos, drawing numbers. We're trying to provide a map for anybody who will read this, not just the architect who's going to answer it, not just the owner who's going to answer it, but you are writing a map for anybody who is going to read this later on down in the line of where exactly this question is directed towards. So drawing numbers, spec numbers, meeting minutes, photos, again, anything that you can do to provide a mental map of where that question or clarification is needed on the project. Absolute must for every RFI. Not everybody's thinking exactly what you're thinking for a quick response in that. Just you got to think of the entire team as a whole who's going to be reading this. Also include possible impacts. Is it going to impact schedule? Is it going to impact budget positively or negatively? And if you are the manager of either of these, the budget or the schedule, you are the expert. You should know if it's going to impact that. So if you don't know and you need to contact the subcontractor or the supplier and they know, get that information. If you don't have the exact time, it's going to be a week, it's going to be 2 minutes, but you suspect that there will be an impact, then just put maybe. You're informing the team so that they can respond and come up with the best possible solution with all of the information needed. Next is obviously ask the question. Again, if it's coming from somebody, you might need clarification and you might need to rephrase it or reword it a bit to make sure that it encompasses communication to the rest of the team so everybody can understand it. But include a possible solution. This is important. I mean, even if it's not taken, you got to provide your expertise. The question is obviously something related to something that you know and affects your work. So provide a possible solution. And in every possible circumstance that you can, provide a possible solution. You are the expert, or the subcontractor is the expert, or the supplier is the expert. So provide your input as an expert to contribute to the team and a solution. And last but most definitely not least is provide a date that we need it back. Again, we're the experts. We know the schedule. We should know when and if we do not have that information, if we then can no longer move forward because it's holding something up. So we need to know that date that we need it back. Really, really try to not say immediately or tomorrow. That gets really exhausting, and it actually shows, it can instill a lack of confidence in the team that you can pre-plan and think ahead. So not really looking good on your part if we continue to do that. So provide a date. Do not provide ASAP. I have mentioned this before. Do not provide ASAP. Provide a date. This isn't saying that it will happen. Okay, there are probably going to be a few. We need it immediately. We need it quickly. Or you might even be getting this from subcontractors. So that's a discussion that you need to have. Candid conversation of, we need to look ahead. We're looking like fools. This isn't professional. So let's try to get these RFIs and start looking ahead and try to get these questions answered and be respectful of our project team's time and give them the opportunity to answer. So again, don't provide ASAP. Have a specific date of when you need that back and put that date and communicate that on the RFI. So how about responses to RFIs? First and foremost, within the time needed. That is a huge one. Whenever we do have an RFI, specific RFI needed on a specific date, we really do need the answer to keep the team, for the good of the team, to keep the team moving forward. So biggest thing is please have a solution, a response not another question, but a solution or a response by that date. Now, that being said, if additional information is needed on their request, like the question doesn't make sense or it's lacking information, best way to do this is ask for that clarification, but ask it sooner than later. I mean, as soon as you see it, ask for clarification. And the best way to do this is by phone, because obviously they tried their best. They should be trying their best to communicate as best as possible the RFI and explain the situation in the question. But and so there's going to be those one-off cases where maybe it doesn't make sense. A phone call is honestly best. Just to clarify this, you can walk through it on the plans, and then they could send through a revised RFI with that clarifying information, which may be great information that might be needed to make sure that there's not a misunderstanding down the line when you send out the RFI to the rest of the project team anyway. This also means that the person receiving the phone call has to be receptive to that, okay, and be able to understand that, yeah, okay, I made a mistake, sorry, I didn't include that information, but we got to be receptive to keep the team moving forward as well. The responsibility of asking detailed and legitimate question falls on the general contractor. So if this winds up not being the case continually, I could absolutely understand the frustration of the architect. This also being said, on the architect and owner side, please understand that life happens. Sometimes you will get an RFI and the answer is right under our nose. As long as this is not continuous and it doesn't keep happening, it's an honest mistake. This may expose that they may not be looking at the right plans, and got to check ourselves in that situation. Did we send them the updated plans? Maybe we missed it. Mistakes happen. One, although this can be frustrating, and of course you want to respond in sometimes a snarky way, as a contractor, as whoever, whatever, you just get frustrated. You're wasting my time. But understand that this actually may be exposing a bigger problem than just the question or the RFI. That again, they don't have the right plans, which that's a big problem. Want to make sure that everybody is on the same page. That's a miscommunication right there. But in addition to this, if they do have the right plans, maybe, just maybe, they had an extremely hectic day on site or in the office, and it just went through this one time. You have all been through this. I know it. I know you have. So be understanding. And again, as long as it doesn't consistently happen and it's continually happening, let it go sometimes. It's life. So as a recap, 1, make sure that we can already answer the question for the RFI before sending it to the next level. 2, make sure that you create the best possible map to let anybody and everybody know where to find this question or what this question is in regards to. 3, provide possible solutions based on the expertise of your team. 4, again, make sure that you have any budget, schedule impacts and the date that you need it back, which is obviously, that's going to impact the schedule as well. When answering RFIs, please be cognizant of the requested return date or due date. 2, call your teammate to clarify any misunderstandings about the question or if you need a better map. And 3, please be patient that not all RFIs or questions will be perfect. You're going to have to figure out the flow of your team and what is best for the team. But be patient and just realize that it's going to take time to get into that flow based on your project team. Main overarching rules about RFIs is we need to just make sure that we are using them for the tool that they were intended to be. Do not use them as weapons or ego trophies. No time for that in a project. And there's no purpose for it. It's just going to actually demolish our team instead of build it up to make a more successful project. When we are patient and understanding and we put in an honest effort, RFIs can be an amazing tool for our projects and our project teams. You got this.